showed us a picture, and it was this like gray blob essentially, and he says, hey, we're going to focus on this section. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he blows it up, and it's an elephant. And we were going to focus on the stomach, but then he said, as soon as we do that, then we're going to look at the whole body. Because too many things, like Don said, you know, people, oh, I'm going to focus on the trunk, and you don't even know there's a tail on the other end. Or I'm doing a poor job of explaining what he says. That's how I interpreted it. And so, you know, you focus on the whole elephant because you can only see part of it at once. So you step back.
With doctor, so it's not, what would doctor do? Yeah. And I'm just going to briefly introduce everyone again, and then we'll really dive into Dr. J. So first we have Dr. John Wood. He created the TIPP, or the TIP method, and it's a breakthrough approach based on neuroscience that helps people actually heal from trauma instead of just managing it. His work was inspired by his own family's struggles with childhood trauma and autoimmune issues, which really pushed him to find a real lasting solution. And he's helped everyone from trauma survivors of the Boston Marathon and Las Vegas shooting to elite athletes and execs, and helped them get back to peak performance. He's appeared on over 100 top podcasts. He's written powerful books, and he speaks around the world about how to reset the mind and remove the effects of past experiences, what he calls atmospheric conditions. All right. Then
this looks like the dating game.
Yeah. Yeah.
One.
yeah, what are you looking for?
Uh.
Moving on to Dr. Greg. He is looking for
Big heart.
Yeah.
Looking for awe.
He's the next level healer. He blends naturopathic and Chinese medicine to help prevent and treat everything from chronic conditions to burnout. He started Nature Cures Clinic way back in 2001, then later launched Be Vital, and eventually merged everything into Energy for Life centers. And his whole approach is very holistic. He works with the body's energy systems using things like light, therapy, sound, and mind-body practices. So it's really science meets soul, and he's all about helping people truly feel alive again. And last but not least, doctor number 3, your third option on our team.
I'm 6'4".
Yeah. Look at the biceps now, right?
So he's a naturopathic doctor with a big heart and an even bigger mission. His journey into medicine actually started while working at Walgreens Pharmacy, where he saw people constantly refilling their prescriptions, and they were almost getting sicker instead of better. And that really lit a fire in him to find a more natural root cause approach to healing. So now he runs Masterpiece Health and focuses on reversing chronic conditions like diabetes and heart disease. He's super passionate about helping people and really likes working with entrepreneurs to really start feeling alive again and well, and not just manage and numb the symptoms. And so he brings that same dedication also to his family, where he's a proud husband and father. And so with that, we have a great health panel, and I'll pass it on to Graham.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, well, it's amazing. We got 3 fabulous guys up here, so take your pick. No, we've heard a lot from Don. Yeah.
And I have $1 burning a hole. It's interesting.
So we've heard from Greg and Don, But we haven't heard a lot from Jerem, Dr. J. And so it'd be great to kind of hear, about your story, what you love to focus on, kind of what your perspective is, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, so that was a really great intro, but it's actually a little bit old. Because Masterpiece Health is now Unstoppable 365. But along that journey, I was working with, like I said, reversing heart disease, reversing diabetes program, and Greg knows it's easier than people think, and having great success. But my biggest frustration was I'd have, just on average, say, a 65-year-old woman come in on 5 medications, within 6 months, get her off of all of her medications, blood sugar is looking perfect, everything awesome. And then she'd be like, okay, thank you. And then she'd go back, and 6 months later, everything would be back where it was because she would stop everything that we taught her and helped her do. And so I was getting really frustrated with that. And along the same time, my wife had a genetic kidney condition and her kidneys started to fail, and she ended up being on dialysis. Lots of complications. They ended up removing her kidneys. She had 9 months with no kidneys. And she was very sick. And so I was full-time caretaker, single dad with 2 little kids. My girls were 2 and 5 at the time, and trying to run the business and run the practice, and trying to be super dad. Everyone just kept telling me how good I was doing. I just felt numb with things. And then my wife, December 2019, got a kidney transplant. Things started looking up. Amazing that conventional medicine exists for something like that, to save her life. And so then she started recuperating, building health back. COVID came, wasn't very good for practice, and through that time, and I decided that I didn't want to, with the diabetes and heart disease clients who were not working well or were getting great results, and then just going back to their old practices after that. So I decided to stop that, and all this time, for those multiple years, I realized that I had not taken care of myself, and I hit rock bottom burnout wise, that entrepreneur burnout that some of us see. Those days of, my wife was in the hospital for 100 days in 2019 at different times. And it really just added up, and she was doing okay, good, doing solid, but I didn't even know if I could go to work the next day. This is about 2 years ago. And through that whole journey, my wife then, we stayed up to like 2 or 3 in the morning talking because she's really amazing, and made sure that I got to the bottom of it. And we started, changing everything we wanted to do. Who did I like working with? I had a few clients that were super amazing entrepreneurs, and that I had fun time working with them. And so, okay, we're focused on that. And being an entrepreneur, that's what I knew that I like doing too. And slowly but surely built to, now we're growing super fast, super crazy. I'm testifying for the MAHA, the Arizona Senate, for their health bills and all these other things. And going to, I think I mentioned, 5 masterminds a month to talk to entrepreneurs about health and different things. And just lots of fun. And so, through that, now I have my Superhuman Entrepreneur program and podcast that, gets help. That's how I'm changing the world, by changing entrepreneurs and helping them level up. So.
Tell us a little bit about Unstoppable 365.
Yeah, so Unstoppable 365. So we're trying to cover top to bottom health wise. We have personal trainers, we have registered dietitians, we have supplements, we have all like the foundations of health. And then on top of that, we get some fancy stuff with the peptide therapies and stem cells, and ultimately to, if it's good, there's so many problems in the world, it's going to take a long time for us to figure it out. So we need as many people possible live to 150 or so to be able to make that happen. So yeah, lots of fun. We have in that group, we have, Joe Polish and Whitney Jones and Tari Mello and all, some of those people running it or investing in it. And then I get to kind of work the magic in all the different places to be able to make that happen. So
specifically, I heard something about gut health. Can you get like your?
Yeah, that's the secret, or one of my secrets.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it all starts in the mouth, the start of the digestive system. So the digestive system from top to bottom is essential for everything that goes on in the body. And so even my diabetes, heart disease patients, we would heal their gut and they would do better. And an entrepreneur who thinks they're high functioning, high performing, heal their gut, they even function perform even better. And then from there we can sprinkle on peptides, all the nutrition supplements and longevity molecules, and have even more fun.
You ready for questions?
Yeah, let's go for it. So, yeah, I thought that it's best that, like I said, let's have questions from you, and we can share. It's interesting because as I'm sitting here listening, Dawn's is mostly in person, and you're transitioning to figuring out, the virtual.
We have
Right? Yeah. And then Greg is in person
and virtual.
You've been all virtual since COVID, and you're doing some more now in person as well. So it's interesting to watch or to see that how the three of those work. So.
Also, the first question: how many bowel movements should you have a day? I'm serious.
Minimally one every 24 hours. When you look at babies, they're pooping every time they eat. So that's a more efficient, alimentary tract, your digestive tract, but minimally a one in 24 hours. We don't want you to be full of it.
What does TIP stand for?
The Inspired Performance Program. The reason we use that acronym because it's about performance. So the acronym of TIP. What's your peak performance?
Got
So
it.
that was why we thought TIP sort of
Oh, I like that.
tied in.
Dr. Betty has a question from Dawn. Can you share how you've helped professional sports people and the research behind your methods?
Yeah, because one of the things I found from the research is that, and these guys know this so well, is that it affects the whole system. So trauma is actually pulling energy. And so the mitochondria actually gets affected. So when I work with the athletes, I'll give you some examples. Marco Giacchetto was a double amputee, lost both his legs to frostbite. He was a marathon runner from Kenya. Him and his cousin got recruited to the University of Alaska. So you can imagine that. Culture shock. His cousin committed suicide. Marco got so distraught, he tried to commit suicide, passed out in the snow, and they had to amputate his legs below the knees. So then they built him prosthetics to walk on, and then built him blades. So they started training him to run marathons, and he was doing really well. But the guy who makes the prosthetics for the Boston Marathon people called me. He plays golf with me, and he says, doesn't seem to be improving no matter how much training we're doing with them. We think maybe you could help him. So Marco came in, I took him through the program. 9 days later, he runs in a marathon and took 15 seconds per mile off his time. Wow. And what I said to him, I said, Marco, I didn't make you faster. You were already that fast. You just didn't have access to that power. A month later, he runs in the Boston Marathon and breaks a world record. He's now the world record holder for marathoners with amputations. And then 2 months later, runs in the Chicago Marathon, breaks his own world record by another 5 minutes and gets signed by Nike. So I see, and that's actually how I met Joe Polish. I was at the Spartan World Championship speaking there. And there was the lady who runs Spartan Japan asked me if I would work with a friend of hers who was running in the World Championships. And so I said, yeah, okay. So I worked with him on Friday. And she's 3 guys that are dominating all the World Championship races. She says, he's not one of them, but I'd like to see, if you could help improve his time, we'll measure it against the 3 guys. So I was speaking at the World Championships, and Joe was there as well. So we ended up talking, and we went to the start of the race to watch him run, and he won the whole race. He beat them all, even the top guys. And again, I don't take credit for that. It was 2 days after the race. What trauma does is pulls power. And so the Lake Nona Performance Center, they work with world-class athletes from all over the world and do all kinds of stuff that you guys are doing as well in training. And I took them through the program, and the one guy who's the neuroscientist of the group, he stopped me and he says, hold on, you just blew my mind. He says, we work with these world-class athletes. We're measuring performance constantly, heart rate variability, all of that stuff. We never understood why they would go into a sympathetic nervous response at rest. They would just be at rest. You're telling me that's the trauma loop that's running? And I said, yeah, but we never knew that. We never knew that that had that much effect on them, but that makes total sense. So when I work with the athletes, the idea is get them to their peak performance. They already have the ability, they just can't access the power.
Jim?
Or can I come
Oh,
on the
go for it. Yeah,
research
yeah.
part of that too? Because when people say, well, what's the research on that? I know you, all three of us probably do the same exact thing. Research in medical and science is so terrible. It's garbage. 99% of it is not even worth reading. And so this is what I do, and I'm guessing you guys do the same thing. You have to take the little bits and pieces of actual valuable material and piece it together, right? So like Don just explained multiple things there, and there's probably not one specific study, unless you published it yourself, that has all that information together. So you have to piece it together and then make that happen, and then you create your program, and then you do the studies on that.
And that's what we are doing now. We're publishing our study, we're showing that it actually changes the gene expression. So the genes that regulate the inflammation upregulate with trauma. And then the genes that regulate the immune system downregulate along with neuroplasticity. And what we find is it gets stuck. So now you've got high inflammation, low immunity, and low neuroplasticity. So they struggle in school, they're getting sick, you've opened up this door for disease to come in, they don't have enough strength to fight it. And so what I'm showing in the study is once I take them through the program, the genes that regulate inflammation come back down, the genes that regulate the immune system come back up, along with neuroplasticity. Now, all naturally. No medication, nothing, just resolving the trauma.
And to piggyback on that real quick, Dr. Betty had to leave, but she wanted me to share this with all of you, that she's traveled to Dr. Don Wood's lab in Florida and personally attests to the reliability of his methods in demolition trauma. She feels very strongly about his methods and had asked if he would go on the road with her. So
Good luck with that one.
about this amazing work and get the help they need. It's nothing but good things to say about her.
Oh, yeah.
Well.
That's great. Yeah. Keep down.
Yeah. Jessica.
So walk me through, like, from beginning to end, what your program actually looks like how long it takes, what the process looks like.
And we could do that with Dawn. Let's do that with all three of you. Yeah, yeah.
So I'll start with mine. So when somebody comes in, they can come in for 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days. But the core program, the TIP program, is basically, it's about a 4 to 5 hour program. The first 2 hours are all spent on science and education. I basically debunk everything they've ever heard about what trauma does, what their system is doing. And because my belief is if you understand how the system works, you're not going to be afraid of it, right? We're designed to heal, right? But they tell us that the only way you're going to heal is if they keep putting these chemicals in you. And I've never understood that. My daughter, I told the story about my daughter. They told us there's no cure for Crohn's. We don't know what causes Crohn's. She's going to have to live with this for the rest of her life. They took out 24 inches through 4 different operations of her intestines. Said she'll eventually end up with a colostomy bag. And then her second autoimmune was idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis, identical thing. They just said no cure, don't know what causes it. So what I do is in that first 2 hours, I talk about the story. And I talk about what happened and where they were wrong. And I said, so when I came in, I was looking for what did they miss? And I explained to everybody what I saw they missed. And what happens is in that first 2 hours, people are like, this makes perfect sense. Why it would work. And one of the first things I share with them is there's nothing wrong with you and there's nothing wrong with your mind. They've told you you've got anxiety and depression and all these different things. I said, those are just symptoms of a problem. It's generally coming in from something else, but they treat the symptom. So if you go into your doctor, even if you get, and it's become so easy just to say, oh, I have depression. Well, may not, just maybe a circumstantial situation, a relationship issue, whatever, but bang, you're on depression medication. They never ask you. My wife had trauma in her life, and she says every single time she's been to doctors, even from a child, never once did they ask her about trauma. And that's where the source of it was. My daughter never got asked about trauma. It was all about, oh, you have Crohn's, right? Steroids, right? Anti-anxiety med, antidepressants, pain medication. I went out to visit her out in LA, and she must have had 20 bottles sitting there. And I said, who's giving you this stuff? Right, this is before I started to research it. And it was just, that's what they do. And so after, this is what's amazing, after we solved her Crohn's problem, she ended up with a cyst on her ovary, which was different, right?
Yeah.
And so she ended up, the doctor comes in after the operation and he says, I'm looking at your chart. Your chart says you have Crohn's. She goes, yeah, I have Crohn's. He goes, well, I operated. There's no evidence you have Crohn's. She goes, no, I haven't had a flare up in a long time. He goes, but you're not on medication for Crohn's. She goes, no, I don't take medication anymore. And he goes, well, I hate to tell you this, you never had Crohn's. He goes, and so I explained to him what I did, right? And so he goes, that's impossible. If that was true, you'd have a Nobel Prize. That's exactly what he said to me. So I said, well, then you tell me what Crohn's is. He goes, Crohn's is a lifelong debilitating disease with no cure. I said, I disagree. Crohn's is inflammation. And that inflammation was caused by her trauma. When I got rid of the trauma, we got rid of the inflammation. He then turns to her, you guys have probably heard this story 1,000 times. He's not going to listen to me anymore. He turns to her and he says, you'll probably be discharged Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm going to set up an appointment for you to come into my office. I'm going to put you back on your medication. Zero symptoms.
Oh.
Yeah. Because it makes no sense to him.
Yeah, their world reality. They cannot see someone who actually heals. So I mean, this statement is when you realize. So it's rare to have another naturopath in a mastermind. Like we're both trained with the body can heal itself, and you know if you don't have providers or in your advisory panel people who can see you as a whole healed human being versus a disease process. Like that is what people don't understand. They're physicians that are the trusted advisors, the experts. They're well informed. They can diagnose like anybody's business. They can save your wife's life with, you know, with that type of acute medicine. We need that. We're not saying get rid of it, but it should not be the mainstay of your medical care. You want somebody to actually believe in your innate intelligence that it can heal. Because this is exactly what happened to my patient Holly. Healed from Parkinson's disease, 10 years diagnosed. Her doc said, I must have misdiagnosed you. In her reality, that can't happen. Yeah. You know, it's like, oh no, Parkinson's is uncurable. Like you're going to be on, it's either slow or quick, you decline. No, she has no evidence of disease. Right, like their only thing is I got to put you back on meds. You don't have any symptoms, but you got to be back on the meds. Like what kind of skewed? That is a warped training that has brainwashed a population provider component. So we're up against this reality of like there's the dominant paradigm and those in power say that can't happen. That's where this Maha component, we just got filmed for the Maha documentaries as well, of getting the message out. Our bodies can heal. Like it is radically different than what we all got programmed with. So it is so exciting. Like the component of calming the nervous system is integral to all healing. That's why we're really excited. I got interviewed by Blake on like, what was your big takeaway? It was like really cinching the deal with this gentleman to bring this into all of the procedures. Like I have a huge community online. It's like everybody needs that. Like the component of trauma as a baseline. He has a procedure in 4 hours to just turn it off. That sets the stage then for bringing in what we do into the equation so that actually radical transformation can occur. It's so exciting to be alive right now. And we got all so good. So
I'm just gonna
So I was just so I know the answer to your question, so I'm going to help with this. Yeah. Okay.
Me too.
So
I spend 4 hours doing this.
So 4 hours he communicates with you. He takes you back into his room.
Yeah, so the first 2 hours, you just sit with me in a white room, right? And so it's no stimulation, nothing. I just have you by yourself for 4 hours or 5, whatever it takes. And we sit there in the first 2 hours of science and education. And then I start talking about trauma. And then I'll say, I'm looking for 2 or 3 events in your lifetime that you've experienced trauma. Don't worry about whether picking the right one, the wrong one. What if I don't choose the right one? It doesn't matter. Just whatever comes to mind. It's amazing what the mind will bring up. right? And people will go, I've never thought about this particular thing in years. And I say, I'm looking for, if each one of those were made into a movie, I'm looking for the trailer. I don't need a lot of detail. I'm looking for a very quick, and I don't even need you to talk about it if you don't want to. So, you know, people come in and have had sexual assault. They don't want to sit there and start talking about their sexual assault. So I have processes that I can take you through it. And I've done this in groups of people, take them through it and resolve sexual trauma, right, in that fast. And basically, we work on 3 of those, and then the final 4th part is on performance. Now I say, now that we've got the reset done, where do you want to go? Right? Because now that trauma is not going to be filtering constantly through your actions. And now we can start focusing on performance. And where are you going to give me some highlights in your life? We use the highlights to become now the resources to respond to what's happening now, as opposed to defaulting to the trauma. Is that answer?
Yeah.
So just to interject, 1 to 3 days, if that's in one day and you do the magic in 8 hours, you're walking
Yep.
away like a king or queen. What situation would it go to 2 or 3 days?
So if they go to 2 days, basically what they're going to be doing is, I'm going to do the performance the next day. We'll spend more time on the performance, and then you're doing theta chamber, PEMF mats, hyperbaric, doing all those things. And then also on the second day, besides the performance, I'm working on how do you deal with current stress. So I call it the Tip Now program. How do you deal with tip now? And so I give you techniques that we sort of talked about as well as what happens now? Because I said, you know, even we got the trauma out of the way, it doesn't stop life from coming at you. So how are you going to deal with life coming at you now? And so that's what we do on the second day. And then the third day is just more of, we're doing all kinds of testing and everything, going over the testing, you know, recommending things that you could do or supplements and things like that.
Cool. Thank you.
When you think of atmospheric conditions, when you use that frame, help us understand what you mean by that. I think I know what you mean by that. What do you mean by that? Atmospheric conditions.
I just came up with this. It's a story that I tell, and basically to summarize it, if you understood the atmospheric conditions of a person's life, you'd understand why they behave the way they behave. So my wife could never forgive her father for all the pain he created. And so the idea is, I tell a story, I won't get into the story, but I tell a story that basically shows how if you understood his atmospheric conditions growing up, you don't need to forgive him, you just need to understand he couldn't be any different. Right? So that's not letting him off the hook, not cutting him a break, just saying, does it make sense now why he does that? And so that's
It's not
atmospheric.
about forgiving him, but just understanding the status where.
You just need to understand that he must be in pain to create that much anger. What does it mean about you? Nothing.
No.
It was never about you. It was about him. That healed her. And she didn't have to forgive him. She just needed to understand, right, that it had nothing to do with the little girl growing up in the house. Because she was always what if in her life. What if I had done this? What if I had done that? Right? But that wasn't helping.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Greg, tell us about Energy for Life and your process, what you do, how you.
Since COVID, it really got us thinking outside the box. And so we actually talked to people around the globe at this time. Most majority, 98% of our consultations happen remotely. We start with a complimentary consultation. We do either the longevity blood work panel, that was the offering for this group. We have a detect phase that I described yesterday, looking at beyond just one lab assay. You are a dynamic being. So we're looking at the gut microbiome, the Dutch hormone panel, level of toxicants in your body, levels of trauma. So these are all aspects of an evaluation. It's a detect phase in the ECHL protocol. The second part is correct. So that is where we do an executive thrive program. It's 3 days out at the center. We're doing regenerative medicine, hyperbarics, etc., IV therapies to prime the body with frequency medicine. So we do a lot with light and sound, which is the future of medicine. I truly see that happening now because we're getting such incredible results with our patients. Then we do a laser activated guided stem cell procedure on a age reversal. Again, my age is 55. My cells are saying they're 39. I think measuring that, there's a lot of different age clocks that you can measure. Not one clock rules them all, but I think measuring that is important. And then, looking at it, this procedure reverses pathology, so I put it in for my own longevity. And then day 3 is more consolidation. So in the hyperbaric chamber, sound baths. We have a amazing light bed. It's a green and light bed called Arc LED that we take a voice scan of you. It reads your biofield. We then put that information into the light bed, and it carries the signal on the light into your mitochondria. So we're measuring this. So it sounds very Star Trek-y. It is, but that's where we're living. But we can measure the changes on your mitochondria. We've got a me-screen mitochondria test that I'll share with you. That I'm part of the medical advisory board with Hamel Patel. He's doing a lot of the research on Joe Dispenza's work. He nonchalantly told me about this mitochondria test thinking he's going to do some drug discovery. And I looked at him and I said, Hamel, every clinician in America needs this, because to know what you're taking and thinking and doing, is it actually moving the needle? You can now measure that. So I'm really into, science-backed, evidence-based movement and really pushing the frontiers of what is possible. So that is the Thrive, and then there's a community built on the back end of that for support.
So if you pick 3 supplements, starting with the number one you would take, such as magnesium or whatever.
I love questions like
what would you say?
So because you've got to measure. You got to measure. Everybody wants to know, what can I take and do? You need to measure and know exactly what
So
you
it's
need.
different for everybody.
It's different for everybody. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, my protocol is very similar to, gather the information. We do a lot of blood work, lab work, saliva, urine, depending on the person, probably similar, or some of them are similar, some are a little bit different than what Greg does. But gather information, put together supplement plan, nutrition plan, peptide plan. We prep the people. I do a lot of prep before any of the regenerative treatments, like the IV with stem cells or exosomes or whatever. And then so people are ready, and then so definitely lots of fun, and definitely figuring out what that person needs individually, because there's lots of common patterns that we see, but the little nuances are what makes the difference. That 80%, that's safe for just about everyone. The 20%, the most of the magic happens. And I work with a lot of kind of my target entrepreneur is like the blue collar entrepreneur that has never taken care of their health at all. They've lived off of fast food and gas station food, and then they're 45 years old and have
Do they have
20 million.
The hot dog that's been rolling around on that thing for 4.
So
picks up there?
Yeah.
so
Sushi.
but which is really great for me, because really minor changes like getting them to stop eating that can have huge impacts on their health. And so and then once they get that done, once they go through 6 months of that and they're like, they feel so different already, then like, oh, now we can get into the more fun stuff and longevity treatments and things like that.
So
Is healthcare insurance cover the services? I guess we all out of the pocket.
So yeah, unfortunately, it's like car insurance, right? So there's the big thing for the major wreck, and then you got to take care of the maintenance on your car. Same thing with your body. Yeah, and that's the warpedness of the system right now, is it will pay for your disease, your drugs, and your surgery, but it will not pay to get you well.
Dr. Graham, would you mind going deeper into this gut health work, and especially the leaky gut that you were talking about? Tell us a little bit about what that is, and how that affects entrepreneurs.
Yes. So there's lots of different gut testing out there. Some look more of microbiome wise. I have had mixed results going off the microbiome test, which is why I like testing for leaky gut specifically, because I feel the leaky gut, when we get that balance, it's like
Define leaky gut.
So,
What's
okay,
leaky gut?
so leaky gut is the official term is called intestinal permeability. So in your small intestine, which is responsible for absorbing all your nutrients, breathing all the good stuff in, it's also a protective barrier that's supposed to keep all the things out of your body that are not supposed to get in your body. And so it's 1 cell thick. If you stretch it out, it's about the size of a tennis court, 1 cell thick. And so it's very susceptible to little micro damages. And it could be from microbiome imbalance. It could be from lots of different things that could be causing it. But so that 1 cell thick barrier, if we can then restore that integrity to that barrier and help that protection protect, because whenever things get through, then it causes inflammation, and then that inflammation is in your bloodstream going everywhere.
You gotta keep that membrane strong.
Right. And so then if we do that, then that has huge impact on your immune system, on your ability to handle stress, your hormones, your all types of things.
Poops a day.
Your poops a day, yeah. So all that's important. So yeah. And then
Yeah.
because there's a mucus layer on that 1 cell thick barrier, that is where the microbiome lives. And that's important, that they can have a happy, healthy home for those to work better. So
Is it you talk about diet probably right away, but and moving your body, getting oxygen into your mitochondria, but also supplements wise, like, are you actually giving supplements to put bacteria into the body? Like, are you?
yeah. That's part of that whole leaky gut restoration protocol is a restoration of a healthy microbiome.
Ongoing. Sounds like you're not quite one and done, but it's certainly
It's pretty close.
pretty close.
Pretty close.
And this is obviously front loaded
Front
and
loaded.
then maintenance.
Yeah, so depending on, there's an annual bundle of what we find specifically for you, what the testing is. Of course, you want to then have your baseline every year because you are a dynamic being moving through space and time. So you want to kind of check in and then realign each year. So that it varies, but it's an upfront component. If you have a lot of like injuries or past injuries, that
Complicates.
that kind of makes it a little more, personalized for you. So it's kind of like a bespoke component in that it's specific for you. We're in Park City, Utah, so it's a great place to visit.
Same type of thing. Yeah, every 6 months or so, we're reevaluating lab work, tweaking, adjusting the supplement protocol, the peptide protocol, the hormone protocol, whatever it is.
So for Dr. J, I can say that I was supposed to have surgery on my hernias, and so he said testosterone and BP 157, and so he put those on me. So I take those. Well, I haven't been very good. I won't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been under stress.
I've kind of forgot, but anyway, he put that on me so that it was a pre-surgery plan. So he said, hey, get your body as low as it can in inflammation, kind of heal it as much as it can now, so that when it's done, and you still do it, then it's helping the whole process heal faster. So that's one of the things that he had just helped me with over the last 3 months.
So yeah, so like our maintenance plans, then if something's coming up, then we can add more in. Or over time, if you're like, hey, I heard about, like, I get tons of questions about like methylene blue right now. And so, okay, we can help you find a good methylene blue, and let's add that into your maintenance plan, and how often do you need it, and all those types of things. So, so those kind of ebbs and flow.
How often your clients? Like, is it a monthly or like you have one-on-one, or is it?
So I do a group call every week, as long as I'm in town, not traveling, or able to, so that everyone can check in. I don't want anyone to go longer than a week without having a question answered if they need to. And then we do have regular, at least once a quarter, in-person check-ins, but we also have dietitians and personal trainers that meet with them weekly.
I'm part of the Struggle 365 online, so we counter macro. We have Whitney and Ashley, and it's a Monday morning, every 8 o'clock in the morning. It's just a really great way to start the week and be on course with trying to wear a best sell. So I've been with it right from the start.
Yeah.
Jim.
Totally different wall of the questions. We're seeing so much Wi-Fi, batteries, Bluetooth, all this stuff coming across, and then we're looking at monitors to try to see where we're standing. What's your thoughts on these? I went back and forth multiple times with wearing Fitbits, wearing the ring, doing that stuff, and then getting away from it at the same time.
And AirPods.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the AirPods are not good.
All right, well, I'll put my thoughts first. And this applies to kind of everything too. So all of our cells are little pharmacies. Every thought that we have, every sound wave that they have, every frequency that comes in, any trauma that's there, all the food we eat, or the supplements we take, triggers our cells to work and to make little peptides, usually, to make those cells go. You know, every cell, our bodies have 50,000 peptides working inside them every day. And so frequency from a ring is going to stimulate those cells to do something. The beautiful sounds we heard earlier, the sound frequencies, are going to stimulate our cells to do things. The trauma that we keep repeating over and over, or the stresses we're under, are going to stimulate our cells to do things. And some of those might be good, some of those might be bad. That's why we talk about the epigenetic changes. Those are the things that are happening in those cells. And so we live in a world that there's lots of negative frequencies floating around, all Wi-Fi, 5G, all those, Bluetooth. None of those are good for us. So what you need to do is know about that, and then do what you can to compensate and cover and heal as much as you can after, because we can't not live in this world.
Including those little like blockers and so forth,
Yeah.
put on your phone, and
So things like those can be really
Rather than
beneficial,
or whatever.
Yeah. Especially if people are really sensitive to them, those can be really beneficial.
It has some sort of a
Yeah.
deterrent. I mean, I don't know. It looks a little
Yeah.
blue.
Or at least like grounding at night, getting grounding sheets, so you can at least have it where you can do that.
Yeah, I think that is really well said. You know, if you think of our, again, receivers and our body batteries. So if you go to the cell, around the cell is an exclusionary zone of water that's structured. That comes out of University of Washington. Gerald Pollack found the fourth phase of water, which is gel, or fourth phase of a substance, right? Most substances, we have three, the solid, the gas, and the liquid. Well, this is a gel of water. And that is what the Chinese were talking about, the meridians. That has been now measured as microtubule. It's an energy pattern in the body. So if you see yourself as charged up, if you can measure the potential on the cell from inside to outside, there's an electrical potential there. So we're electrical light beings. Like, you can measure all of that. You can measure light coming off of our DNA. You can measure the electricity of the human body. And then we're bathing ourselves in frequencies. Now, I interviewed Lloyd Burrell. All of the developers are like, you want a smart home? I was like, no, I want a dumb home. I don't want to have this internet of things. Like, we already have that everywhere that you're getting exposed. And, the research, this is like the smoking, gun or of tobacco. We're just at the point where a lot of this research has been suppressed, or, the industry is creating doubt so that it just continues. And so it is kind of buyer beware, be aware of, you got to get grounded. You have to be hydrated. You have to do the things that actually ground our bodies so that we don't get ill or it doesn't tip the scale. And everybody's sensitivity is so different. Joe Mercola has a book called EMF. He has a lot of the research in that too. He's a personal friend of mine. He got me to stop wearing the earbuds, and
I just saw someone walk on the street there.
That was wild.
Yeah.
When you were saying that.
I mean, everybody, I can't get my kids to stop using them.
Right.
It's like, gosh, you feel invincible until
an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
But I've also ran into the thing where I've had some heart issues that I sometimes get anxious about. So I'm like, what is there out there that I could be using that I would feel better or safe with, or how to comprehend or compensate for that situation while I'm offset that.
Because we're not going to get away from Wi-Fi.
And
We're not going to
I built a new home.
Yeah,
and
so
did
it's
everything
minimizing the
smart
dose.
home.
So
some things to balance it out.
Another home now, and going exactly what you said. I built a smart home. Now I'm looking at building another property and going the opposite way, because I've got Wi-Fi bouncing across 55 acres of property right now.
Right.
Well, you can do like a Faraday around your bed. So there are things you can do. Like I don't know if you already have a smart home, how you have to be really tight around the bed. But you could put, so you're blocking your EMFs from, at least when you're sleeping.
Well, you could just turn it all off.
Not if you have a smart home.
Oh, your phone.
Oh, yeah.
You can turn your own Wi-Fi off.
Yeah, you could, but then you're still like the Faraday cage. Its concept keeps all EMFs, right?
Yeah.
So your neighbors too, or God forbid somebody has one of those 5Gs on their roof next to you.
Yeah.
Right? You can't control. You could do all this work on your this beautiful home and the person next door decides to take the deal with whatever internet company and put a 5G on their house, right? So one of those antennas.
I love an IT guy bouncing from all 5 houses on our property.
Yeah.
And running.
Yeah.
So there-
At least you
oh.
can bury it with it.
right, yeah.
Just
Danielle, go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, Jess.
just gonna say, to kind of wrap up, like, what are small things that we can do? So, like, instead of AirPods, suggest this, or, you know, if you're on a computer, like, use blue light. Like, what are simple, easy things?
Or which one of those little things you put on the computers, EMF things that they keep sending me on? Is there one you recommend? Is there, or are they all pretty good? Like, is there anything?
You know, so I personally, I have, it's called BioWell. So I don't have any affiliation with this company, but I've measured with a meter on the phone. You know, definitely do not, if you can turn your Wi-Fi off at night, put it on a timer. And you're not going to be on the internet at nighttime, so just put it on a timer, shut it off, and have it not running. So, you know, limit the dose. Definitely using the, you know, the wired component. I know, yeah, they've marketed to us. It gets tangled in our pockets. But it works and it keeps this off of you. Turn off the, you know, the airplane mode on your phone if you have it next to your bed. If you have that next to your head, sleeping by your bed, you're using it for your alarm clock. Like, we just made a deal between each other. We're not bringing our phones into the bedroom. We're going to have a, you know, another clock that raises with the sunlight. Minimizing blue light at nighttime, you know, like you had mentioned.
The alarm thing's real because I have it in my bed. So you're saying that really affects?
Oh yeah, I had a patient in Japan had insomnia, and we discovered where he had his bed. He had actually dirty electricity right at the top, right, you know, the plugs in the wall. His head was there. We had to move his bed. His sleep issues went away. So, you know, there is a
So
component.
maybe move the phone into the bathroom, hear the alarm go off, and then a ding, 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 you can hear
You
it.
can't push snooze.
Well, when you-
It's buried.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a
So an old-fashioned alarm clock would solve the problem, right?
Yep. Wearing,
Okay,
you know,
gotta
blue
get that out.
blockers.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Old-fashioned alarm clock, blue
At least
blockers.
the 8 hours of create a sanctuary in the bedroom of this is the protected area. Like, because you've got to get into deep rest. It's how your body heals. You have to be in parasympathetic activity. So getting that like safe room for yourself would be my recommendation to start where it doesn't feel overwhelming.
You can also train your brain to wake up.
Yeah.
I don't wake up with an alarm. And I wake up literally 1 minute before I'm supposed to wake up every time. My wife will set the alarm just to be safe. And I wake up and I turn it off.
Is that part of your 3-day training?
That's day 4.
I have a red light bulb that I have just on my bed. So I can, during the day, and I use it at night, and at 5 o'clock, the minute it goes dark, that's all I use in that room. And it has other added bonuses too, because it's pretty sexy.
All right. Danielle, you have a question? Betty.
Way too much.
But I guess going on for red light. Dr. Echo, can you tell us about how you're incorporating photobiomodulation, specifically red light therapy, in your treatments?
Yes. Yeah, so we do across the board, we're using light pads, low-level laser therapy, or it's photobiomodulation on our bioelectric acupuncture. So we have each patient with the light pads on their body when we do the acupuncture. We have the arc lead bed that I mentioned. It's a light bed. It's a clamshell that has the ability to take your bioresonance, your biofield from your voice. We can put that into the light bed, as I mentioned, and send that signal on the light. We also have laser helmets that we incorporate. So a neuronic or Weber laser helmet. We call it Kitty's Biohacking Corner that she developed. It's a Weber helmet, a Nano V that you inhale structured water that helps reconstitute the protein structures of your body. And we run right frequencies in that biohacking corner. Occasionally we'll do, we have a device that I was actually just talking with Zulia Frost out of Spain. Yesterday morning, we're going to do a mitochondria study on the red light therapy. It's a high powered kind of band that you can put on your waist for your microbiome, looking at those changes. So we're across the board bringing in different devices, different therapies, but bringing in that photobiomodulation for in the center and then at home care too. Yeah.
You can take the supplements to make it even.
Yeah, so you can enhance this. So the biohack is in the stack. So you can take, we are members of ISLA, the International Society for Laser Applications. It's an international consortium of providers that come together annually to talk about what is happening in the clinic, what's in bringing the latest research to us. So you can enhance the effectiveness of your red light therapies by taking methylene blue, taking curcumin, taking green tea extract before you put the lights on your body. During COVID, there's a Weber laser wristwatch that 100% of people that use that, you would take P5P activated B vitamin 30 minutes before you put the watch on. And 100% within 5 days, their fevers were done during COVID. This was research out of Germany. And so it is, it's a really cool, like Dick Tracy looking thing for those old enough to remember Dick Tracy, which is pretty much almost all of us. Couple said, who is he talking about? You put that on your wrist and take the P5P beforehand. So you can do some biomodulation of the red light therapy too.
And it's curcumin, and then you said something blue?
Curcumin, methylene blue. Yeah. Alpha lipoic acid and riboflavin, B2. There's research on specifics, like the B2 would be for a viral illness or if you feel like you're getting sick. Curcumin for pain or anti-inflammation, neuroinflammation. Alpha lipoic acid is general pro-antioxidant therapy. Yeah.
Any other questions that you have? That's a lot of information. Yeah.
Which I think sort of not trying to defend the traditional medical field, but one of the problems that we're facing, and these guys are exceptions to it. This is why you want to deal with these guys. The traditional medical field is they go to medical school and then they get siloed, and then they're put into a specialty. So the people that were dealing with my daughter knew all about the gut, but they knew nothing about the brain. So they never would have connected what I connected, because they're not given that training. So they see everything. What's the statement? If you're a hammer, everything's a nail. That's the way they see everything. So they know about the gut. And so that's why it made no sense to this guy that the brain fixed that. That doesn't make sense to him. That's not in his training. Yeah. So
Atmospheric conditions.
yes, that's right.
One of the things that I remember Dr. J, when I first met him, and it stuck with me forever, is, and I think about it regularly still, is what you said, is that he showed us a picture and it was this like gray blob essentially, and he says, hey, we're going to focus on this section. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he blows it up and it's an elephant. And we were going to focus on the stomach, but then he said, as soon as we do that, then we're going to look at the whole body, because too many things, like Don said, people, oh, I'm going to focus on the trunk, and you don't even know there's a tail on the other end. Or I'm doing a poor job of explaining what he says, but that's how I interpreted it. And so, you focus on the whole elephant because you can only see part of it at once. So you step back. Was there a question here?
Say, along like what Dr. Wood was saying, like what we would do through the medication therapy management oftentimes was connecting, like this doctor's doing that, this doctor's doing that, and often take people off of medications and talk to them about their diet and their exercise and how that would help them improve and on their diabetes and things. But besides that, I do have a question about air. So what do you guys think about, the air that we're breathing and filters and all that kind of stuff?
Don't stop breathing.
Write that down.
Yeah. That's the 3-word takeaway right there.
verification systems, like side ones.
Air and water. Should we filter it? Not filter it?
Than mine, but I think anything you can do to help improve your system, the less think about your immune system is constantly trying to protect you, the less stress you can put on it, the better.
Yeah.
And so that's why what I believe is when we get the psychological out of it, and then you go to these guys, like we were talking about that yesterday, is I sort of clear the area and then the system will start rebuilding itself. They're going to provide all the building materials so that it doesn't have to rebuild slowly. It can build much quicker. So all that stuff comes into the system, but the system will do it. It can grow it or it can get it put in.
Yeah, I think, looking at, we have an air filter in our bedroom. We have 2 in the center. It's important, oftentimes the air quality inside our homes is worse than outside. So especially if you have carpet. Carpets acting with your intelligence and your innate immune system, and it can rewire the way that your body's immune system functions. So the air quality is a biggie. There was a Molecule Air, Austin Air, IQ Air. Not all air purifiers are created equal either.
We are testing some from a building services standpoint too. We'll start trying to push out some commercial buildings that Ferguson has now created on their own line that is pretty exceptional. And I've actually got one on order to put in my house to go ahead and test it.
What's the name of it?
Ferguson Supplies actually, who is now generating their own unit and starting to build their own. So I've actually
They do a lot of AC units, right? So they're
these ones here actually go right into your furnace duct line, so you don't have to do anything with it. So it's one can run on that. My house is all set up on split units, so they've actually engineered one for that. So I'm supposed to be on one of the test units to go ahead and have one out there and check air quality at my own house with.
Yeah, there's another one too. It's like Purify, and they have a place in Scottsdale where you can go. And, yeah.
There's about 5 or 6 companies out there. Some of them are more hokey. Don't really accomplish what you need to, and that's why I'm looking forward to testing theirs, because they have supposedly tested every one of those and then created their own in-house.
And water purification filters on your showers, that sort of thing.
Or whole home
Yeah.
would be the preferred way. There's a whole discussion around structured water. Have you guys heard about structured water a little bit? So it goes back to that exclusionary zone process around our cells, the EZ layer. You can see the most profound way of thinking about it. And this does sound a little hokey, but there was a Dr. Emoto out of Japan who did research on water and structured water. He had 4 categories of watered, siloed, and he was growing soy. I think it was soy. And in one category, he just ignored it. The second one, it was like put on war and hate, and I think he played maybe heavy metal to it. And the third was love and appreciation, gratitude, and was maybe playing Bach. Don't quote me on the music component. But of the 3 categories there, guess which one was the worst looking when you looked at pictures of the water? Ignored, right. So basically they took the water out of that. So the soy that was growing was super decrepit and moldy with the totally ignored. It was still kind of black and goopy with the hate, war, etc. And then on the love gratitude, it grew beyond what you would think of just it growing in normal conditions. And then you took the water from those and froze it, and it was like the total special snowflake component with the love gratitude, dysfunctional broken up water, so that would be unstructured water, and then just totally a milieu on the ignored. And that goes to all of the things that we've been talking to you about over the last 2 days of your thoughts matter, your words matter, your actions matter. All of the cells are listening in an energetic space. And you have way more agency and influence than you realize, but you've got to be conscious about it. And my encouragement, I love these questions, is, you've got to get into action. everybody can learn and get this great info. And we know what happens when we leave the container of a mastermind is life happens. And, then the notes sit there and nothing is there. And, Kitty, Graham and I were talking on the break, and, we've got an age reversal mastermind that we were, founding members in, and want to share that information with as many people. And one of the things that keeps us accountable is like, okay, we know this group is meeting in July. And so having that, like, I want to know, I'm going to ask you all questions. What is your action step on your health before July, so that we all know, and you're then accountable to yourself and to us, because that is what the whole purpose of the mastermind, right, on this segment. And so that's my question for you coming from the panel. What are the 3 items for you? What are you aligning for yourself, and how do we help you make it happen, right? Because that's what we're here for, is that accountability.
I took Tara and I took a trip to Mazatlan and went out to a tequila place. Strange segue, but at this, it's custom tequila, small batch.
Yes.
But they've been doing it for over 150 years. And at some point in the early 1920s or something, they began to play music, and their production of good quality tequila went up 15%.
Wow.
So in this distillery now, they only play, and it's classical.
Yeah.
And they only have like 6 or 7. These are the 6 or 7 songs that increase our production by 15%.
Wow.
Wow. So
I want to show one more thing. When we're talking about atmospheric conditions, have everybody ever heard about the marshmallow test? Did anybody ever hear that?
No.
It's a book. It's a famous book. And they did a study. This was, I think, in the 60s. Have you heard of the marshmallow test? And they took children and they put them in a room and they said, you can have 1 marshmallow right now, but if you'll wait 15 minutes, you can have 2 marshmallows. And so they tested the kids. What were the kids that would wait for the 2 marshmallows as opposed to the kids that would take the 1 right now? They studied them for 25 years, and they said the kids that would wait tended to have more success. They had more willpower. They redid this study, and it was wrong.
Yeah.
It's not willpower. It was, now they didn't say this is what I'm saying. The kids that could wait were the kids that knew they had trust. They believed that they would get it. But the kids who had been in scarcity had no idea whether or not that second marshmallow was showing up. That's not been their life. So they're going to take the 1, and it had nothing to do with willpower. It had to do with what I call their atmospheric conditions.
Their,
That's-
their belief system,
So their parents would say, here's what's going to happen, and then happened.
and they believed in themselves.
And they believed that it would happen. But if you're a parent, you're living in a home and your parents always making promises and never delivering on them, and then somebody offers you a marshmallow, you're going to go,
that's a
Yes.
alkaline water. Oh, they were
New study?
want to answer that one.
I want to try this study on my grandkids.
So the original study was done, I think, in the 70s.
He's confirmed his own study.
Yeah. The original study was done in the 70s, and this latest one was done in 2015, and they multiplied it. So they took, as opposed to a small group, they quadrupled it. And what they realized is it had nothing to do with that. It was all about these kids. Yeah.
Final question right here for Jerem, and then we're going to close.
Alkaline water, it's probably good that it's purified before, but there's very minimal benefits, I believe, from the alkaline water you're buying from the store.
However, hydrogen water is great, and there's a lot of research in it.
Okay.
But once again, filtered.
I'm looking at what I'm putting in the new house I'm going to build. So
Okay. Wow, this is awesome.